brief is not a very romantic one. I don't have any fashion images or anything like a mood board, because what we're going to do in this project is that we have a restricted budget and it is really highlighted. So I am going to give you some tips about that. We want a visible anti-torsion shank. So this is something that is really required in this project. And we will see how we're going to solve that. 2 colors on midsole, or even maybe 3. And then we have a very regular and technical outsole. So again, not playing around or breaking too many rules. So we will try to stay in the rules. And then we have a very cushioned midsole. So the outsole can be regular, but the midsole can be a little bit, more cushioned and a little bit higher. And then we need the stability and anti-abrasion areas well seen and well executed in the design. We need the ultra traction, which is a Lugs design thing. And then we will try also to give a little bit of attractive surface design somewhere in the sole. And I have chosen 2 images. This is a very classical Salomon trail running shoe, which is the perfect brand, I think, to talk about when we talk about trail running. As you can see here also, it's a very regular sole. It's just one color. And then we have one lug, which is a mono lug, which is distributed perfectly. We have more lugs around here where we need more stability and traction. And then the lightness comes from all the emptiness between these lugs. And then here in this area, we have a lot of rubber touching the terrain, because we need really a lot of stability, because we are also fast. It's not trekking, so we're going to run in the woods. And when we look at the profile, and also the shank area is empty because it is not contributing to the running. Like in the running shoes, we really don't need it to touch the ground, but now we have also other soles that they do touch the ground. And then we have a very thin, very light outsole with the minimum rubber thickness here. And then we have some really high and spiky lugs. They should be around 4.5 millimeters. So let's write it down, 4.5 mm. It can go up to 5, but in a sole like this, it's so thin, I think it's going to be a little bit unstable. And then we have a very nice and big heel, which is really giving a lot of stability here around. So it's keeping it in the place. And then we have a very sleek movement here with some ornaments around it. And then we have the communication of the technology. When we have it, we have to communicate. It's also here Conta Grip, which is the ultimate grippy compound of Salomon. So this is one. We analyzed this one. And then I've chosen this pink one, which is really cute. So it's not always about men, okay? Also women run, right? So here we have another approach, like if I draw a line here, you will see that there is a lot of distance, a lot of the heel and the toe are really like rocker bottom. So we would call this a rocker bottom. So this is also very, very cushioned. As you can see, it's very high. And it's most probably because of this shape, it is an injected EVA. And then when we look at the sole, again, we don't have it coming over the midsole a lot, but just a little bit here, because since this is a very big one, in this part, it can also get ruined. So we do a little bit of protection that goes up, but just a little. And then the whole other thing is staying under the midsole and it doesn't come out. So it's very light, very, very light, very, very essential outsole. And we always have the toe protection. The toe spring and the heel spring is much more than this one, because this one is regular. It's sitting on the ground. It's like a lower midsole. When we have a lower midsole, we don't need a lot of toe spring. When we have a higher midsole, then we will need a lot of toe spring to be able to move easily, toe off easily, okay? So this is important. And then again, this is also the strategy of the brand. They do one winner lug, and then they would repeat it, like they wouldn't be on the same line, but they would be alternate, like an X shape maybe, or a V shape. In this one, it's like a V shape. And in this one, again, we see them alternated. They are never on the line, so that it is more stable. Every point is covered. So what we are doing is we are analyzing them and giving good rules for trail running soles, which is really, really regular. And then we have, like it's a very smooth rubber. There is not really a lot of textures or whatever going on because it's a minimal one. They just wanted to show these are our lugs and this is our sole. And then we go and open up some holes in the rubber to take out some material and then give a little bit of more flexibility where we do not have the rubber. And then we have more, you see, they are closer to each other here because we have more abrasion on the heel area. And as you can see here as well, these chunks of rubber are bigger, but then we have really very big emptiness here, which I wouldn't do. We should be also able to criticize when we see a sole, even if it's Salomon. I would fill it up also here a little bit. So anyway, we have big chunks of rubber and there is a lot of abrasion going around this area, happening around this area. Here we can see that there is a 3D sculptured movement, which is quite cute. So I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of light there, but we have some flares and some 3D stuff going on. Okay. So this is how we analyze these soles. And do you have any questions? I think they are quite clear. And then, of course, we have other categories that we will see also other types of trail running soles, which will be my next YouTube video. I recommend you to watch it. It's going to be long and we will analyze very different categories of trail running soles. We have the last phase. So let's start designing. Let's look at I always have my design brief under my hand and I say, okay, restricted budget. Okay, I got it. Okay, but let's look at the design. Visible anti-torsion shank required and 2 colors on midsole. So these are the elements that I already know. So I have to consider them before I start designing. Okay. If I'm going to do 2 colors on midsole and I do not have the budget, so I cannot do 2 color injections, I cannot even make an injection midsole, I have to make a compression molding midsole because injection midsoles are 3 or 4 times more costly than the compression molding. So what I do is here I say, okay, compression molded EVA. Okay, this is the most, the cheapest and the easiest way to make a midsole. So I don't go with the injection, which is also going to restrain my shape in the end and the height of the sole in the end. I cannot go too high and I cannot do very weird, strange things and I cannot do holes and stuff. Regular and very technical outsole, so we don't go and play around too much. We do the right thing, and then maybe in the next workshops, we're gonna break the rules a little bit. Let's learn them now. Very cushioned midsole, it means that I should have some height, but let's see how much we're gonna do that because we have a compression molded EVA. Of course, you will have questions about this. We have them, we have the answers. I will try to explain them while we design. And then we have the stability in anti-abrasion areas, which should be, like communicated through design, okay? Visually also. We are not making people guess, we are showing them, putting it out there. Then we have the ultra traction, which is gonna come from lug design, which is the basis of trail running. Trail running means lug perfection. So we are gonna invent a new lug. I've studied them a little bit. So an attractive surface design, we can try to see that in the midsole, we can try to see that in the bottom somewhere, to insert some nice surface design. So these are very important. I have the anti-torsion and I have the 2 colors on midsole and I have to keep that in mind. And I start, okay, we need cushioning, right? Do you see the base a little bit? Well, it depends also how much is over the last and the upper and how much is under the upper. So I guess it would be more or less like maybe four centimeters. That's 40 millimeters is already, I think, high enough. Some of them would be under and some of them would be over. The one that is over is thinner, right? It's just the walls. But the one that is under, then it's going to be a lot of material. And if we have a lot of material with the compression EVA, the hardnesses inside is going to be different. It's not like the injected EVA that you have different injection points, so the things are more balanced inside. When you take the compression molding, when you take it out, it pops out like a popcorn, and it's going to expand outside, and it's going to expand irregularly because of too much. But still, I wouldn't give an exact number. It depends a lot on the design. If it's a lot, there are a lot of cuts, if the proportion that we have on the walls and the proportion that of the material we have really like under the last. So I know that you look for formulas, but as I have written in my LinkedIn post, there's never one really like a formula, super answer to that. So the maximum is going to change slightly from project to project. So what I do is I go and just by eye, I say, okay, so if this is going to be my midsole, I have to go a little bit under because I have the outsole as well. I think this is quite big enough for midsole and the outsole, and I do my line under it. So please, please, please never ever design without the ground line, because this is where we start to make the sole sit on the ground, so we can also define the heel and the toe spring and everything. So it is very, very important. So I start always with the well, let's take a little bit. Let's make very drafty upper with the tongue, and then maybe I have this, okay, just to have an idea of what it can be, and then toggle. So let's say that this is my shoe, and then you can see the line right here underneath. Is it visible? So what I decide is, first of all, I start with the overall silhouette of the shoe. So we said that we have an anti-torsion shank. So I have to have a little bit of cavity in the shank. So how do I define the shank? What I do is I go and let's say now this is like 20. So this is 10, let's say 7 centimeters. So 1/3 of the length is how much my heel strike will be. So it's going to be more or less here. Okay, I can go a little bit back as well in this case. So here is the cavity of the shank. So it's really like where I start to roll. And then when I do something for running, I should do a lot of toe spring because it's going to make the sole really fast. Okay, that's really important. So I go and close it a lot. I still don't have any outsole. I still don't have anything. So I want to decide, and I want to make a little bit, like a sole that goes out, but I cannot go very undercut. So I have to go down and do something like this. And then I will look at it. Maybe it's too much. No, I think it looks quite nice. But what we can do is maybe to make it a little bit more rocker bottom, okay? And then here, please, please, we have to pop it out. We are not making our sole out of paper. So we have to make sure that we have at least 3 millimeters of EVA thickness. I do more stability here, like this guy over here. Like I really like the idea of having a lot of stability and the push, the containment of the heel because we are running, so it is a little bit safer. And then, okay, I have to stay like this. And then I go down so that it becomes a little bit slicker. And then I want to make a little movement somewhere. Let's not do it here because we will have the shank. Let's do some protection over here somewhere and then go very slim on the toe. We need at least 2 millimeters of wrap over, which means drop in for gluing. So these are very, very important minimums. I cannot go and touch the last because we usually make them in strobel construction. We have all the strobel stitchings here. So we have to cover it. We have to make sure that it's gonna work. So we always have a toe protection here. Again, do some material thickness also here, at least 1.2 mm of rubber. So maybe I should do this so that you can see it better. No, it's blurring, right? Blurring a bit. Okay, so let's go and do this very sleek toe. And then I go and combine these. Again, be careful not to go too near to the last line. So we go at least like 2 millimeters. Now I'm just in the limits, okay? Remember, two-color midsole. How are we gonna do that? We are not gonna do that by two-color molding, but the secret to create a beautiful 2 or 3 colors midsole is through painting. Painting doesn't cost a lot. It is like, I don't know, 15, maybe 25 cents. Now in the last years, I don't know what happened because all the prices went up, but it is really an insignificant cost in a performance sole. So since I know that I have to paint the sole, I have to create spaces which are usually recessed in negative so that somebody with the brush, they really literally by hand, they go and painted inside, of course, having some templates, some masks around it, but it is done by hand. So I cannot do all smooth area and then hope for the best that somebody is going to, like paint it inside, but I have to carve it and I have to sculpt it in a way that we know where we are going to paint. So I have to know this from the beginning of the project. I always recommend to do these movements for future painting possibilities. I don't know. It depends. If we are talking about a Vibram sole, it's going to be double than the normal prices. It's a very difficult question that I really don't want to answer because it depends on the quality of the rubber. It depends on the quality of the mold. There are mold makers that you have to pay double. There are compounds that you have to pay double. So yeah, it is very difficult to answer, but maybe around 15 euros, 12 euros. It's even too low, If you go to a good quality, it's gonna be more. But when we say budget saving, it means that we do everything that we can to create a very appealing sole without going to the injection molding, without going with 2-color or 3-color outsole, I don't know, without opening any TPU, any plastic parts, because the plastic parts are injection molding that you have to pay. So what I want to show you, without opening any injections and any, like plastic inserts and very, sophisticated materials, with the basic materials, how we can make still an appealing sole, which has a real anti-torsion here. So what I'm going to do is I want to design my anti-torsion area so that I can design the rest around it. So it's very important that I first define the central area of the sole. So I cannot go very, like this part because it's going against the molding. So I can do maybe something like this, and let's go and do something very classical in this moment, and then I can change it if I want to. So I don't know if you know, but I am not replicating a design that I already done, but I'm just improvising now. So it's like a stage here. Okay, so this would be the heel part, and then I go and do something like this. So my tip here is this is rubber. This is not TPU. This is not a plastic. This is a rubber coming from the bottom. But it is a very hard compound rubber, okay? This is our shank. This is something I did many times in Vibram, where we did not have the possibility to open a TPU or a plastic insert thing. That's what we did. So here we should have grooves that separate the 2 colors. And then I would leave a little bit of plain rubber here. And then I would start with the breaking heel. Why? Because if I have the groove just in front of the lug, it's going to break very easily because it's a deep channel where the 2 colors shouldn't mix. Now I have, this is quite understandable. So what I go is I go 90 degrees here so that it's gonna break, or I can go also a little bit undercut if I want to. And then now I start to think about my lugs. As I said, usually we have 4 mm, maybe 4.5 millimeters of lug height in this category. If we go 5, it's gonna be a little bit, yeah, we can do that, but this is usually what we do. Okay, and then I go and do my lugs. I want to do them like really conic shape, not with the here is 90 and then here is like this, because in trail running we change a lot of direction, so we would need a traction that is more multi-directional. So I think this is more correct. And then I go and do the little lugs that I want to have them also on the toe, which I really think they look a little bit more aggressive. And then I go to the heel part. So as you see, I'm still designing the silhouette. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit more fast. Bear with me. And then now we came to the heel part. I would leave a little bit of more rubber here, so I will make a little cut here. I will then just leave it plain. And then when I come here, I want to do some heel protection. So we start to split the midsole and the outsole. So this is how I work. I do the sponge cake, and then I will start to, like melt my chocolate around it. So it's going to feel like the outsole, okay? So since we need the lightness, I don't want to do it very high, going up a lot. So I would just go and maybe do one little protection around here. And then I go and hit this second color here. Now I will also color it a little bit so that you can understand better. And this is how my outsole is coming out. So here again, I have to go and hit it on the second color area, which is the shank. And then I go very, very close and make it really slim. Okay, we can also go slimmer here. In these areas where the two colors hit, we need a little bit of radius. We never do very, very sharp angles because these are going to be trimmed. This is already a very sharp angle to trim, but I will leave it like that, and maybe afterwards somebody's going to complain and I will just arrange it again, okay? So I push the design as much as I want to make the mold makers crazy, and then we will find the, like the bliss point between design and the mold maker. So I need to change it like that, just to bear with me just a second. As you can see here, or maybe I can show it in a bigger scale here. So this is my shank, okay? And then I have very deep channels here. They are quite deep, just around it, so that this is one color, and then to separate it, and then the other part of the outsole is going. So I have to leave a little bit of base and then start with the lug. Because if I do the lug and then I have a big channel here, like a cut, this becomes really weak, and then it's gonna break. I'm giving you very, 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 very technical tips, so I can understand that it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I want to give them. I don't want to hide you anything. Okay, so now since I know that I have a double color, 2 or 3 colors midsole, so I want to create the areas that I can really make some painting, and it's going to make a huge difference in the end of the look of my sole. So I would create these 2 areas as the painting areas. That's why I have to know them before. Okay, I say I'm going to color these. I still did not refine it. Okay, and then between them, I want to do the sculptural lines. Yeah, maybe some inclination. And then maybe inside this area, we can do some positive popping out elements like that. They give a lot of dynamicity to the, like a dynamic look. Fast, because we should give a fast look to the sole, right? Let's go with the line. I love both of them. Guys, you're only asking me about numbers. I feel like an engineer. I always rely on the material people, and I have never memorized the numbers. I'm not a number person. So what we do as designers and technicians, we go to the mold factory. The mold factory has all the communications with the material people. And they will show you different hardnesses of rubber. They already have the samples, and you will just bend them and see how they work. And you can also tell them, look, I don't have the budget to make a TPU shank, so this is going to work as a TPU anti-torsion shank. So which hardness do you want me to use? We don't really need to know the numbers, really, because it changes also, it changes from one material to the other. You know, every compound factory, they have their numbers. These are really like the chemist thing. So what you do, you touch the stuff, you bend the stuff, you look how it works. Okay, this is you don't have to give the number. You have to write down what performance do you need from your material, and then go and check it. Yes, I do. Now, since this is a trail running sole, there is a lot of mud and there's a lot of interference between the terrain, like the trekking ones. But they should be even more spiky because I'm running, so I'm giving a lot of friction to the sole. So it is better to have more distance between the lugs. They can even be more. If you go and look at the lugs, they are very different. These ones are really low. I think this is not very classical. This is more classical. It looks low because it stays a little bit under, but these are actually higher lugs. So they are very open between them so that the mud will not stuck. So of course, I always decide the distance. I choose the distances following the segment. So if I'm doing a snow sole, it's going to be different. If it's a boat sole, we don't even have lugs. Okay, so it depends on the segment, the measurements and the proportions change. Like for example, here it's 1-to-1, so one is lug and one is the distance. But you can also observe the soles. You just can, like download 15 trail running soles and try to understand what's happening. But I mean, in the course we have all the distances. Also, I have given numbers in many of them because I know that many people, they really need the numbers so that they feel safer. Okay, so I go and do my shank area, and I want to color it so that we understand what's going on. Let's do some shadow. So this is really carved. So it's not like chunky in the middle. So it's not very big. I think this could be enough. And then let's go and do some color also on the out. This can be really like formulated. You cannot do all the trail running lugs with a certain number. But like now here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it becomes the toe. But then maybe you don't want to do the toe, which is so compact, it becomes 8. Or maybe I want to make them, you cannot have 10 because then they are really little. Just go and try to see, like how it is working in the other designs as well. Usually, okay, just to give you a number, it's usually around 6 on the perimeter, and then you start to have the toe cap. That's what I do. 6, 7, maybe on this sole, because if I'm doing another category sole, it's gonna be different. Okay, so here I want to now finish the midsole so that we can pass to the serious part, which is the bottom. Yeah, I mean, this is serious as well because this is what we see on the shelf, what we see together with the sole, the shoe. So it is extremely important. So here I've like I can do a little bit more carving, some 3D flares and stuff. And then now I can put some color also here, but then with the red and the orange, it's gonna look really cheesy. So I want to do another gray here. So these are gonna be the painting areas in my sole. So this is painted and this is painted. Yeah, this is a very good question. First of all, it depends on the budget. If we don't have the budget, we don't dare to go with the injection. But if we have the budget, and you say, okay, if you have a very chunky sole, if you have too much popping out on the back, if you have holes like the on running soles, or you have a lot of undercuts, like very conic shapes, then you have to go with injection. But if you have the budget, so more versatile, Yeah, of course, the injection has more design possibilities, whereas the compression molding is much cheaper. It is much more used, so we have to know how to manage the compression EDA because it's the one that is used most in the industry. Yeah, I think it depends on the budget and on the design. If you know, Matthias, you know that you don't have the budget, don't do a design that is going out of the limits of that molding type, which also these are to learn. Okay, you know, I don't want to say all the time we have the answers in the course, but it is a whole chapter. So when we choose an injection molding and when we choose a compression molding, they are two different, we have different outcomes. Whereas in the compression molding, we have more definition of the textures and more definition of the sharp angles and stuff. Whereas in the injection molding, we kind of lose them because everything becomes a little bit more smooth and rounded. So now I can see afterwards what to do with this plastic area because now it is very, you know, like smooth. There is nothing on it. And also here, we can do some carving around here, maybe between the lugs to take out some material, make them a little bit lighter. So I do some shadowing, right?
Someone asked what would be the price difference between injection mold versus compression, like
Yeah.
comparative difference.
Yes, it is more or less 3 or 4 times more than the compression molding. It's quite expensive. Okay, now I'm turning the page. So now that we have the lateral, what I do is I go and take my guidelines. So I need a 90 degrees ruler and I place it well. And I start to take the guidelines from the very outer part of the sole to create the gauges. The gauges are the outer shape of the sole. Now what we have is the gauge of the bottom. So it's the gauge of the last where the foot sits in, okay? Now what we will do is we have to project this sole's volume to the bottom. So first of all, I take the very, very basic lines, the basic movements that I have on the sole, which is the shank and the distance from the shank and the lugs. Now I don't get into all the lugs, but I try to make the gauge. So since this is it has a lot of materials, it's not going to be attached to the last shape, but we will have some volume that is coming out. So it's going to be wider in the bottom. So I go and open it a little bit, always going parallel to the offsetting. This is one of the hardest parts to imagine how this sole, when it flips, how it looks. How does it look? So I'm trying to imagine it. And here I have the shank area. So what you see here, you know, the carving part here, this cavity, I have to mirror it to the other side. So I have the cavity here and the cavity there. Okay. And then I want to open up also here around the perimeter. So we have a larger, you know, like a stable, nice 4-foot area. I will take out a little bit of material here so that it goes really slimmer on the toe area. So it looks more handsome. Not always beautiful, it can look also handsome. I always use that. And then we go, and what I do is from the shank area to the bottom, first of all, let's see how much of the difference between the last bottom gauge and the sole bottom gauge. It is around 22 millimeters. So what I do is I go and replicate it all around until maybe like the half of the sole, just to create the perimeter, right? So I give some guidelines around it so that I can make a perfect offset. This is something that you can do with the programs, which is really easy. So now this has become really huge. So I want to do it a little bit more like drop shape because we have a big heel, right? Since we have a big heel, we need to create a wider heel area. So I want to take this also a little bit wider here in this area. I really like it when you have more stable sitting on the ground in this area. And then now I can start to reflect. First of all, I want to do the shank. You can ask me, yes, but why? Because it is conditioning my design a lot. It is the second color here inside. That's the only extra thing that I'm paying is the second color here and the hard EVA, which is not going to be more expensive, but we still have the two color molding. Okay, so let's do something squared like the rest of the sole. So I think the design communication between the lateral and the bottom, I like to keep it really coherent between each other. And then I will do something symmetrical because this area of our foot, it's better to cover it all in an anatomical way. We can have a little bit more width here. So in the internal area, we can have a wider part. It's like just like our foot, but now we don't have time to do also the internal side. So this is what I'm limiting myself with. So this is more or less the gauge of the bottom of the sole. So you can see the difference. This is the sole bottom gauge. This is the last bottom gauge. Sole bottom gauge, last bottom gauge. So this is not very, very easy to achieve in the first shot. In my revisions, you will always see if you have watched the YouTube videos, the part that is always challenging is to create the gauge mostly on the heel part, because the first approach is never to open it up around, but they would go just on the back, vertically, but then they wouldn't open it up around. So I think that's also very important. So now let's color the shank area immediately so that we know what's going on. And then I will sculpt it inside and do something more interesting. And also here on this part of the sole, I can also add some texture, like maybe very subtle lines so that our brief wanted some texture. So I have given it also here on the top part. It could be interesting. So now what I do is I have to create a nice lug. Okay. The lugs of the trail running, they usually work very well when they are really conic. Okay. And then we can create this lug, and I would make another little lug inside this with a very deep channel around it. And maybe this also goes out a little bit. And I would add some lines for a better traction. And then you would have the inclinations around here. So this would be a very, very technical trail running lug. So if we see it from the side, it would look more or less like this. But then here you would have very deep channels where this lug that we can give also some inclination will look like this. So this part is going to be a little bit moving, right? Because around it, it's very carved so that the part here in this middle part can be moving a little bit. So it adapts to the ground. I hope this is clear because this is a very special lug shape that we can then distribute it to hold the bottom. We don't need to invent new other lugs. We don't need to invent anything. We can just take our lug, tell a story about it, which is technical, and then just repeat it around. It's a very good question because there are a lot of trail running soles that they are a little bit different, because most of the people when they run, they supinate, so they would use this part a lot. They would land on the external side. In some of the soles, the external is out, but in some of the soles, they say that, oh no, people need more stability in the inner side, so in the internal side. So again, there are different schools of thinking. And I see that the brands, they do whatever they feel like doing. So they're also, I would be more for the supination, because what we do is we go and land usually on the outer side of our foot. When we run, we don't do the pronation a lot. So this part is really stressing a lot. So we can do the asymmetrical thing. And another thing that we do in the trail running soles is to carve this area really deep so that the sole can also flex a little bit vertically. Not only because we don't need a lot of flexion, we need stability. As you can see also in the soles, we don't have any flex areas because they would break after a while, because the sole is really stressed, because we are fast, we are running, we are not walking. Okay, so that's why we need stability in these soles, but we can have this really important cut, which I always do when I do some trail running soles, which would be really deep, that you don't see it in the lateral side, of course. And then now let's start to place our lugs. Okay. So my lug decision was to go with going with this conic shape, which usually really works. That we're going to place them here towards the toe, and then here we will flip them on the other side for braking. You will see that. The conic shape usually works really well. As you can see here, we have more like rhombus shape. This is also fine. And you can see that also these are a little bit more triangular, or we can say going faster on the toe area. So this is what I have chosen. It's just that I have made like two lugs between each other. Both are touching the ground. And between them, there is some gap, so that this part can move a little bit, because it's like having a channel around it, a groove around it, that makes it, you know, like free from the other part of the lug, so that it can move a little bit and adapt to the ground, on the rocks, on the terrain. Okay, so what I do is I just very quickly go and do the guidelines for the lugs. I usually even do them by hand without the ruler, but of course with the ruler it comes much more precise, right? Okay, and then yes, we have this, and then whatever I see in the lateral area, I'm gonna mirror it on the other side. Be careful what is positive, what is negative. Please don't do the contrary. I did it many times in the beginning of my sole design career. So this is popping out, this is popping out, okay? And this, now I got the right rhythm. I'm sure that I've got the right rhythm, right? So this is popping out and this is recessed. Negatives and positives. And then I also do the conic shape, and I do a design that pops out a little bit, so it becomes more aggressive and luggy also around the perimeter. And then when I come here, I will decide what to do afterwards. I have these little lugs which are going on the toe area, and then I quickly pass to the other side. I mean, usually I give a lot of time, you know, like give more time for sketching, but these would be my very, very first concept sketches without thinking about, you know, like if all the distances are perfectly done. I will see them afterwards when I do with the illustrator. I will do the distances more regular, because the regularity comes from also from the profile. Things should be regular. You cannot do huge gaps and then very narrow gaps, you know, it should be really well done. So here I take my lug and I start to place it a little bit robust in this area. And I am also, you know, imagining a guideline here, which is like an offset of the perimeter where the lug starts to sit. And then this is the perimeter side. And then we have the shank here. So as I said, this is a second color, harder rubber. It is still rubber. We are not opening any strange injection molding. I can do some also carving around here. Maybe it would look a little more chic. And then maybe I can do some lines over it. You know, like this is the second part of the design. These I will look at them also later on now, because I'm trying to be as quick as possible. So I'm doing everything together. So this is gonna carve a little bit, and then I will do the other part. So I have some robust stuff going on here, right? So I will do my lugs, you know, I'm not going to enter into all the details, then it's gonna take another hour just to place everything perfectly. Yes, it is. Yes. If you take it inside, you can take it inside a little bit, not too much. Like for example, this one, it's just touching yeah, this is like really like touching. And then this is as well. You can take it inside maybe a millimeter if you want to. But yes, it should really like, I mean, this is going out because I want to show that it is aggressive. But actually, in the end, if you go to the border, this is a little bit inside, like 1 millimeter inside. This is how you see it. Whereas this one, it shows a little bit more, but you should cover it. Yes, absolutely. It's for stability. So now I'm going to place my lugs as icons, as graphic. I'm not going to do all the details because my time is limited. So what I do is now I don't place the other lugs on the line, on, like really linear, but I have to alternate them. So what I do is maybe I do 1 and 2 and 3. As you can see, they start to be alternated, and then I can do also smaller ones. Then I have another one here and another one. Now I'm just leaving it like that. I will see the toe part later on. I want to see the most important part is the forepart. So this is how I place my lugs. These can be a little bit larger in this area. And then I'm also following a flowy anatomical shape when I'm placing them. So the distances, be careful about the distances, not too close to each other, and no big gaps between them, which are different, regular gaps, regular, everything regular. Because on the heel area, you touch to the rocks and to the terrain, and you have a lot of weight in that area. And since it is very large, if you don't cut it, it becomes a very big chunky material that doesn't flex. It's really there, it doesn't move, and it's like a big piece of rock which is hitting on the rocks. If you do some cut, you can also maybe do a cut a little bit like around here, but in the trail running I don't do that because it becomes a little bit weak. But this one, it's going to be covered with rubber anyway. We are not exposing it because then it can break easily. So it has the rubber, but then it can split a little bit like a micro flexion when you're on a terrain that is a little bit unstable. It gives a little bit of flexibility to the sole. Yes, sure. 3D printed parts, yes, but it depends there also on the volume of the shoes that you want. If you're a startup and you want to go minimum and you want a plastic part, but you don't have the budget to open an injection molding, then what you will do is you will 3D printed, but if you are doing a mass production, it still is not very sustainable as time and costs. So now here on the toe area, what I can do is I can either make smaller lugs and keep them a little bit together so that we have more, more rubber protection around here. This is what I like, so that's what I want to do. So I will go with the smaller lugs, and they are kind of cluttered together so that they become stronger. We have more rubber touching the ground. So, and then I can make another one here, the last one. And now what I want to do is, since we want to do some texture like around here, I want to add an area inside the base of the rubber, which can be maybe something like this, an area where I can put some texture on the base, which could be really, really appealing. These textures, you can find the texture books in the mold shops, the mold makers, they have them. There are hundreds and hundreds of them, which I have here in the studio actually. And then maybe I can make another one here up to there, that I have some texture on the base rubber. And this is like the first concept that I really sketch very, very quickly. Yes, it is separated by color dams, and now I have added some incisions, and I want to of course reflect them also here. Yes, that's why, because this is a budget tip. If I cannot make the TPU, I can use a really hard rubber, which actually I'm not going to tell you the brand, which is a very important work and safety brand, which we are making a sole exactly like that. We are not doing the TPU, and we are doing the second color rubber. Yeah, actually on the lugs, on the surface of the lugs, I am not very keen on using important textures, eat out the surface grip. So I think light textures on the top of the soles are better. And as look, I would more regular and technical looking stuff, not very earthy and, like rugged looking stuff. They would look better on the, I think, on the trekking and maybe snow, that kind of products. But yeah, actually they are usually much more for aesthetics, and they are very important. That chapter is also, I cannot emphasize more the importance of texturing in the soles. Now here, I am going to change the direction of my conic shapes, because here now if we go downhill, we want to break. We don't want our shoe to slip away. So that's why I'm giving more surface on the braking area. And then I do this again. Here, a little bit larger and more stable lugs. And then now I will decide what to do with that. So this would be in contrary. Again, very perimeteral lugs. I want you to see well what's happening. So we also have the shadows a little bit. And then now here on the back, I don't want to do like this, like big empty areas. I like better this kind of solution. Or we can do something a little bit more robust if we want to. And I can go and unite this slug with the heel protection and then do something like this. Let's take this one, which is, and then I can add some lines over it so that it's a little bit more flexible. It's not a big chunk of rubber that is not gripping, that's not having any traction, but we have some grooves around it. Okay, so now I will place these lugs as well. And let's not do them on the line, as I said. I think this would be enough. So it's a matter of the empty and the full areas to balance them. It is more or less 50-50, which is fine. I think 50 touching the ground, or maybe 40 touching the ground, and 60 is the base rubber. Here, maybe it's a little bit fuller. And in the back, we can have a little bit more bigger lugs and also bigger allows around it. But then in this place, I want to have more rubber protection. We have trail running soles that have rounded shapes, but the sharp shapes they would really do a spiky motion on the terrain. So I think they are more adequate. I would use them more, but we have them. So that's why there is not one formula. But if my clients, they ask me to do a trail running sole, I will most probably go with the sharp angled lugs. This is what I would do. I will also make another base rubber area where we can insert some texture so that it differs a little bit. It's not all smooth and boring. We can do also very important textures in the base rubber. If we want to use really fun and big textures, we can do that. There is no problem. So this is kind of alternating. So I think this would come to the end of my design. So this would be the first approach to the concept. And then from here, what I would do is take this design, put it over again under the paper and design it again. So I will define the perimeter is very important. And then repeating again, these are the painting areas, paint and paint. Okay. So when you design a chunky midsole, always think about these areas which are really well defined, which eventually, if you want, you can paint, or you may not, but you have the possibility to do that. That is really important. It's a versatile kind of sole design, which is always the winner. This was like a marathon, guys, because now when you see we have a larger base in the faster area, which is when we are running, this is the direction that we go. So the lugs will have more bottom, wider bottom in this part, and then they would just narrow down towards the toe area. So it is like more natural. Whereas this part, when we run, sometimes in the woods, of course, because this is trail running. So I really appreciate those people who would go and run in the woods. They are my heroes. So what happens is many times you have to go downhill. When you go downhill, something should break you. It should keep you stable on the ground so that it doesn't slip. So if we have more braking area, so it is wide open, we have more braking. I hope it is clear. You know, now this is a monocolor. These two areas, they are going to be most probably black or whatever. And then we have this shank area. We can change the colors. Actually, this part and this part can be different colors. It's going to cost a little bit more, but you don't have to change the mold construction. You can do maybe this part red, and then this part is going to be black, and then this part is going to be, I don't know, another color. This is possible. So you will see in the lateral, the forefoot area and the heel area have different colors. Whereas if we have to do a double color, you know, like a two color in this area, we have many different ways to do that. You can just make pods like this one and separate these into different colors, you know, like big pods in different colors. Like, for example, let's take this one. I can do something like this, like an area, and then I can just color it, right? I can do big pods of colors if I want to. Okay, I don't recommend to do, you know, this thing because this makes the lugs very weak, because we have to have the color dams around and they start to break very easily. Okay, what we can do is maybe I can make an area here, which is the second color. I can make a color dam around it. I can even take this one if I want to, okay? Or maybe I can do this. I can decide also afterwards, or I can decide while I'm already designing. It depends. Because usually in the heel area, we are going to collect a lot of mud because you start to land with your heel. And also this part collects a lot, but we have more space here, and then we have more weight and impact on the heel area. So it is most likely that the mud and the stuff will enter more violently in this area. So I usually open it up a little bit more. It depends on how much material we have, but I would go 5-6 millimeters without problems. I wouldn't do it more. But if we have a lot of material, like a really chunky big heel, then I can go even deeper. It depends.